going to talk about games, gamification, game-based learning, all the game-based techniques. So just sound check. So tell me please whether you hear me. If you hear me, just put a plus so that I could see that I'm not talking to myself and I have audience. Okay. So okay, I see lots of pluses. So it means you hear me well and we may proceed. So, as I've already said, I work for an NGO, and as Svetlana presented me, so she told that we've been cooperating for Startup One, where we help with the Teachers Resource Pack, and for the second year, so I will be responsible for a story part for Startup Two. So hopefully, we will have very good product for the second year as well. Okay, so let's talk about. Let's start to talk about today's topic, and we'll begin with questions. So I like asking questions, so I'm going to ask you lots of questions. So just please respond to them. So I don't feel comfortable during webinar, so I love live sessions more because I could see you. So, but as here it's not possible, so try to be at least responsive in the chat area. So I appreciate that a lot. So we'll begin with a definition. So, and with the definition of the word game. So could you please give me just a couple of word combinations, so something you associate with game. So from your point of view, a feature which differentiates any other activity from a game. What makes a game a game? So just type it. It's an activity, great. But how does it differ from other activities? Because game is a special activity. It's a fun activity, okay? I'm happy to see you all as well. Hello. So, has got rules and a winner. Great. So you touched here two things. So rules and a competition. Yeah. Special aim. Good. You are now forming this into a definition. Competition. Enjoyment, good. Desire to will into the busy past. Again, so this you are talking here about competition. So, activities, something interesting to do. So, is anything interesting to do as a game? Games are interesting, but doesn't make a game a game. So, fun and interesting, good. So, now I will show you 3 definitions. So, because when I was preparing this presentation, I came across lots of various definitions of the word game. I loved 3. So, first one is an okay one. It gives really features of a game. The second one is a very short one, but it adds up to the first definition. It adds a very important point to the first definition. And the second one, though it is a little bit complicated, is my favorite. So we'll begin with an okay one, and here it is. So a game is a system. As a system of, in which players are engaged in artificial conflict. So it means that there is competition. It's defined by rules. So we can say that a game is a certain setting with certain rules. So, and that results in a quantifiable outcome. It means we can somehow count the outcome. Okay, for example, is football a game? Yes. we're a football country, so everyone knows that football is a game. So it's a system. So you have certain components of the system like players, field, gate, rules, etc. So is there a conflict? Is there a competition? Exactly. 11 guys from one side are trying to beat 11 guys from another side, and it definitely makes it an artificial conflict. So are there certain rules? Sure, there are. So, and we can actually count the result. So we can see a quantifiable outcome. For example, Manchester beat Liverpool 3-0 yesterday. So actually we can see that if we look at the features of the game, so from this competition, so a game is a system with an artificial conflict, with rules, and with the result we can count. Okay, I think it's okay. But now, so let's have a look at the second definition. Remember, it's a short one, but it adds one very important thing. And actually, when we were writing about features of the game, you actually mentioned this very important thing. So let's move on to the next point, next slide. And the second short definition. A game is a form of play with goals and structure. So a very important something which is added here is that a game has goals. So you mentioned aims here, and you were absolutely right. So as for the structure, it is very much connected to the word system in the first definition, because every system has a structure. But what is important that it has also this certain activity has very specific goals. Just think of yourself when you start a new game with your students. You begin, well, in this game you need to, and you start by stating goals. Goals are very important. Okay, system with structure, where there is an artificial conflict with rules, we can count the result, and we need to achieve certain goals. That's a game. And the last definition, which I say is a little bit complicated, but it's my favorite. I absolutely love it. So here it is. To play a game is to engage in an activity directed toward bringing about a specific state of affairs. So it is an activity. The goal of each is to achieve a certain state of affairs. Right, it's clear. We've already talked about that. Using only means permitted by specific rules. You may not use everything possible to achieve those goals. You can only use means which are permitted by the rules of the game. Where the means permitted by the rules are more limited in scope than they would be in the absence of the rules. Again, let's talk about football as an example. So you know exactly that in so do you hear me? Do you still hear me? Think that my the thing doesn't work already. So do you still hear me? Just put pluses so that I could also understand that I'm with you and you're with me. Great. So good. So football. So there are certain rules. Remember those rules. So the players from one team need to score a goal into the other team's gate. But can the players use, what can't players use to do that? How limited are their means? What can they do, what can't they do? So can you actually tell me? What can football players do? What can't football players do to achieve the goal? To score maximum goals? Hello, do you hear me? When I talk, I see the system that it works from my side, right? So just, okay, good. So again, my question about the football, about the rules. What can't footballers do in order to achieve the goal? What can't they do? Hello? Now I'll check. Good. I am not. Yes, football players can't play with hands. So I see you hear me. Okay. So football players can't play with their hands. They can't kick others, right? So, good. They can't push others, okay? So what they can use in order to score a goal, they use whatever possible. They can even use arms, but not hands. They cannot take it and just throw it into a gate. Yes. So that we see that the means with which the players can actually achieve their goal in a game, so very much limited in their scope. So, but where the sole reason of accepting such limitations is to make possible such an activity. In other words, without these limitations, football wouldn't be a football, it would be a handball or something else, but not football, okay? So, let's just sum up what I've just said. So if we have a look at these 3 examples, it says that it is a system where the players are engaged in a competition with teams, with one another, whatever. So this is a system with certain rooms, quantifiable outcome with their goals, and the rules permit only limited scope of means to be used, so which actually makes a game a game. Okay, so let's move on from the word game to the first approach which is used in education. So, and the first approach which is used in education, which uses games in education, we'll discuss is called game-based learning. Okay, now again a question to you. So what is game-based learning? Just in your own words, how do you understand game-based learning? What it is? This is learning through games, okay? Good. Using games during studying or learning, good. Learning through games. Actually, you are right. Let's have a look at the definition. I love definitions, so let's have a look at it. So, game-based learning, or as we usually use abbreviation, GBL, so is a type of gameplay that has definite learning outcomes. So we talked about the goals, yes, so in the game definition. So in other words, game-based learning is designed to balance 3 things. So this is subject matter, in our case this is the English language, with gameplay, any game. So we connect English, game, and then the ability of the player to retain and apply the said subject matter in the real world. So, in other words, we take English, grammar or vocabulary, or phonetics, or structures, whatever. So we take a piece of language, we connect a game to it, we create a game with this language. And the reason for playing the game is for learners to be able to use grammar, vocabulary, etc. in the real world. So this is game-based learning. Yeah, it is very, very much popular, especially in primary school. You probably all went through these online courses for preparation for the 1st grade, so and you probably all heard about the importance of game, especially in primary education, which is true, and not only for primary education. Game-based learning is used So in teenage learning, for adult learning, in business area, whenever possible. And we'll discuss the reasons a little bit later, but it is very much used. So Svetlana was telling you about startup. So, and she probably mentioned, because I was not listening to everything, but I listened to some of the talks she's given. So she usually said that in every lesson there is a game. And this is true. And usually these are productivity games, so which make learners repeat and retain and reuse the vocabulary or structures, etc. at the end of the lesson. So this is just a very beautiful example of game-based learning. So here I usually show the example of tic-tac-toe. So do you know the rules of tic-tac-toe? Just pluses. Who knows the rules of tic-tac-toe? Pluses. I start to see pluses, yes. So we all know that we play it. So there is a grid, and players, or teams of players, put in turn knots or crosses. And the aim is to form a line. The line may be vertical or horizontal, vertical or diagonal. So the aim is to form a line with crosses or knots. So these are the rules of tic-tac-toe. So in this state of affairs, so to say, is this a language game? Is this an English language game? If this is, are you there? So is this in English? Okay, so actually tic-tac-toe was not designed as an English game. So, but it is now used by lots of teachers as a language game. And I saw already examples of how it can be done. So you may put pictures into the cells, and kids name the words, and then if they do that correctly, they put either a cross or a note in there. So you can put words. So I have actually some examples of how it can be used. So here is a slide, like, for example, adjectives to adverbs, so where kids need to take an adjective, so make it, transform it into a form of an adverb, but make up a sentence with it. So if it's okay, they put either crosses or notes, or just they answer questions, and they put a note or a cross instead of the question they answer, or they just practice vocabulary and different constructions, putting notes or crossing it there. So this is all a very good way to practice in the classroom. And there is also, so this is also like board game versions of the game tic-tac-toe. So as I already mentioned, or Svetlana mentioned as well, so we work with camps during summer period, and sure, during camps we want to be as active as possible. So, and here is an example. See, so this is a picture taken from our orientation training with volunteers, where we play tic-tac-toe. So you see that the cells are drawn on the asphalt with a chalk. So, and volunteers here are asked tricky questions. So they play in teams. So, and the person from a team who gives the correct answer runs toward the grid and takes the place and forms a cross or a knot with the hands. And it is so much engaging and interesting. You can play it inside, and you can actually, instead of drawing with the chalk, you can put 9 chairs, and kids have to sit in the chair and with their hands as well, same way, to show either a knot or a cross. So, and that will work beautifully well. So you may ask questions. You may also give kids cards with vocabulary. For example, you may revise animals. So, and you say the name of the animal, and the person who has the card with this animal has to take a chair or a cell in a grid, so, and form a cross or a knot depending on the team. So two teams, teams of knots and teams, a team of knots and a team of crosses. So there are so many fantastic ideas. So, and this is again an example of game-based learning. So the game is the learning process itself. So kids learn, or adults, if you work with adults, so you may also use the same approach. So they learn through games. A game is an activity itself which leads to achieving certain results, quantifying results, because you can count how many nodes, how many crosses, whether the line is formed, whether the line is not formed. So it's very, very simple and interesting over here. Okay, so good. So this is about game-based learning. But there is one more approach which is now widely used everywhere and in education in particular. So this approach is called gamification. So what is gamification and how is that different from game-based learning? Again, I'm not listening. I want to see your ideas. What is gamification? Remember, game-based learning, you use a game to achieve learning outcomes. You connect subject matter with a game, and actually you train your kids to use the subject matter through the game in real life. But what is gamification? It is something different, I'll tell you the truth. It is not game-based learning at all. Okay, I won't take you long. Remember, so it's gamification, it's using games in a learning process. Game-based learning is using games in a learning process. So gamification is a little bit different. Gamification is the application of typical elements of gameplay. Remember, we were discussing when we were going through the game slides that games, the features of the game, like rules, points, like quantifiable results, right? So scoring, competition, aims, goals, a certain system and structure. For example, here it's maybe going from one level to another level, for example. So, and the application of these elements to other areas of activity in order to engage people to participate. So, unlike game-based learning, it is not just using a game. It's when you take something which is not exactly a game. It is not a game. For example, multiple choice activity, or reading a text, or listening to a dialogue, any activity which is not a game. And when you add some of these elements to this activity, some of the features to a game, you gamify this activity. So you gamify what you want to say. So, and your sole reason to do so is to engage learners to do this activity so that learners could be more interested in doing this activity. So this is gamification. When we talk about gamification, and when you actually Google the word gamification, especially in education, it brings lots of resources where it's used in various platforms, again, so this very resource like private tutor thing, so Svetlana was showing, which is now, they are now developing with Lengva Books, has lots of gamified elements, and they actually gamified it. So the learning through this resource in order to engage them to participate and to make them do all those numerous activities for them to practice English more. So this is gamification. So now let's have a look at how, so at the next slide will actually allow us to see how GBL, game-based learning, differs from gamification. So the main difference between the two is the integration of game mechanics with the training content, or in schools, this is with the learning content. So GBL fully integrates the two. Like with tic-tac-toe, you actually play a game with the language component, and the language itself is an activity. It is an activity. So, sorry, the game itself is an activity. On the other hand, gamification uses some elements in order to reward or to engage learners in the process of learning. So when you gamify, you do not exactly turn an activity into a game. So, but you may actually use some of the elements. So here, just put pluses where it's clear, or minuses if not, just for me to understand how the things are getting on here. See, I'll see lots of pluses, which actually makes me very pleased. And now we come to the next stage of today's webinar, where we'll talk about the reasons why. So why we use games, why we gamify, or why we use GBL, because it doesn't matter whether you use GBL or you gamify activities. Both approaches are fantastic for education, and game itself is a fantastic tool we can use in both GBL and gamification. So, but why do we do this? What is the reason for using games or for gamifying activities? And for me, first of all, it is motivation. So when you gamify activities or when you use games for learning in GBL, so you engage your learners into doing this activity. In other words, you motivate them to learn. So, and this is also, thank you, Tatiana, for this natural environment thing, because for kids, learning is, so kids learn from games. So from the very small game, this is their instrument with the help of which they learn social behaviors, they learn things around them, they learn life about them. So this is very, so this is a very important tool. Okay. Here, I'd like to tell you, so when we talk about motivation, I prepared a very interesting story to you. For the first time, I heard this story when I was listening to Dan Pink's TED Talk. So I now started doing sports, and I do spend a lot of time on a treadmill, you know, like walking. And for me, it's a very, very dull activity. I hate this activity. So, and actually I started to watch videos during my treadmill session. So, and I watched TED Talks. And once I came across the Puzzle of Motivation TED Talk, and Dan actually was speaking about motivation in business. But you know what? When I was listening to Dan, so I wasn't thinking about business. I was thinking about education. And these are the fantastic ideas he was talking about. So that our teachers need to understand those things. So, and that'll help us a lot in the classrooms. So let me tell you a story he told in this TED Talk. But I actually advise all of you after this session to go online, to go to TED.com, so, and to find the Puzzle of Motivation talk, so, and to listen to it. It's really very interesting. So in his talk, Dan told the audience about what is called a candle problem. So a candle problem, so this is and about experiment connected with this problem. So it was created somewhere in 1940s. I don't remember the name of the person who did it for the first time, but in the TED Talk you'll find all the names. So actually the first guy who was doing it actually asked his students to solve this problem. So he asked them, so the following, so the task is the following. So you need to attach the candle to the wall with the things which are on the table so that the wax doesn't drip onto the table. So the first reaction is to use those thumbtacks. Thumbtacks, канцелярски кнопки. So to use those thumbtacks. As you can probably understand, you won't be able to use thumbtacks to attach the candle to the wall. It's too thick to do that, so it didn't work. Then in a couple of minutes, students say, okay, there are matches. What we can do, we actually can hit one of the sides of the candle and then attach the candle with the melted wax onto the wall. So as you probably can guess, it doesn't work. So then it took students on average from 10 to 15 minutes to actually come to the following solution. Isn't that lovely? Were you thinking of using a box in this way? Most likely no. So the candle problem is about thinking outside of box. It is looking at something and trying to look at the things from a different perspective. Because when students were looking at this, they didn't see a box as something to be used to solve the problem. They saw the box only as a receptacle for those thumbtacks. Why motivation? Wait, I haven't finished yet. So, another behavioral scientist from Princeton University, I don't remember the name again, did an experiment with groups of students. So he put two groups of students in two different rooms. He brought the same problem to each of the group. He went to room 1, opened the door, came to the students and said, hey guys, do you see this puzzle? You need to solve it. Your task is to attach the candle to the wall so that the wax doesn't drip onto the table. I am interested in timing how quick you are, okay? I'm going to time you. Clear? Good. Good luck. And left. And then he went to room number 2. He opened the door, showed the same problem and said, hey guys, you need to do the same thing. So you need to solve this problem. You need to attach the candle to the wall so that the wax doesn't drip to the table using the things which are on the table. Clear? Okay, so same thing. But now, 20% of you who are the quickest will get $5 each from me. And the quickest guy will get $20 on top. And now, the question to you, tell me please, how quicker was the second group? Just, I'm interested. How quicker was it? Any guesses? How many minutes? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I do not see any answers. 5 minutes. 1 minute. 3 5 minutes. Thank you, thank you. Okay, actually, I asked the question in a very tricky way, because as a matter of fact, the second group, and actually this experiment was held in with different groups of students, and even in different universities all around the globe. And usually the second group, which was given money for doing this problem, the second group was on average 3-5 minutes slower. They were not quicker. So can you imagine? They were slower. Yeah. Why? Very interesting. And I will tell you why in a couple of minutes. Because this experiment actually had a continuation. So the same professor, don't remember the name, Dan Pink knows, just watch his TED Talk. So in a matter of fact, so he had the same experiment, but with a little bit different setting. He offered this. And saying, he went to, I'll tell you why, just I'll finish the experiment thing, so because it's very important, so, and then I'll tell you why. So this, so he went to, again, two groups. He went to one group and said, good, look at this. And now you see the difference with the previous setting? The box and the thumbtacks are two different things. So now the box is separate. It is not a receptacle for thumbtacks. So, and he said the same. I am timing you to one group, do this problem, and he went to the second group and said, I am incentivizing you. In other words, I am giving you money to the other group. And you know what? This time, with this task, the second group was significantly quicker. So, isn't that interesting? Yes, they were significantly quicker. So they did it. They saw the solution at once because you see it at once. So actually, the setting right here is somehow straightforward. So when you look at this set of things and you say, using these things, attach the wall to the candle to the wall so the wax doesn't drip, you actually understand that you can use a box as a tray, and it's very easy to thumbtack it to the wall. So you see this also, the solution is on the surface. The solution is on the surface. Yes, exactly. The conditions are absolutely different. So, but why? When it requires to use some, so to use lateral thinking, to use creative thinking, to use problem solving. In other words, when it comes to using some cognitive skills, money didn't help. But when the solution is that much obvious and straightforward, actually money worked and the group was quicker. And here, I do remember the name of the person who said this. This is the person named Dan Ariely. He's actually a behavioral economist. So, but things he tells people, so his studies, they're fantastic. So, what he said that as long as the task involved only mechanical skills, something which is on the surface, bonuses worked as they would be expected. The higher the pay, the better the performance. So if you want your learners, so now let's look at it from the educational perspective. When you want your learners to motivate, when you want to motivate your learners to do very simple and obvious things which do not require any complicated skills, like understand something or categorize something, so something which which concerns only lower order thinking skills, so, and some mechanical skills. Bonuses will work, marks will work, stickers will work, whatever bonuses you can think of, they will work. But once the task called for even rudimentary cognitive skill, a larger reward led to poorer performance. This is what we saw in the experiment, the first experiment with the first group. When it came to using the brain, to thinking outside of the box, to use problem solving and creative thinking, which are very complicated cognitive skill, bonuses failed. Actually, they led to an opposite performance. So we were expecting them to be quicker, but every time they were slower. So the same is in the classroom. When you want your learners to do a task which involves cognitive skills, bonuses just won't work. And this is not me who is saying you this. This is science. So lots of experiments can be held. I love experiments because they give clear data of how things happen. So therefore, why am I talking here about games? Because when we talk about games, so games actually trigger those three essential human needs which trigger internal, or we call it intrinsic motivation, right? Because when we talk about bonuses, we talk about extrinsic motivations, something from outside which motivates learners to do something. But when you want learners to use cognitive skills, higher order thinking skills, so extrinsic motivation won't work. This is intrinsic motivation which will help to do that. So those three things, essential human needs, they trigger intrinsic motivation, and they actually are very much used in game-based learning and in gamification. So what are they? First of all, this is autonomy. So we want all to, when we play a game, or when we do an activity which is gamified, it gives more freedom of choice to the learner itself. Because when I play a game, or when I am involved in a gamified activity, so I have more freedom of choice. I have more ownership of the activity, because a lot of things will depend now on me as a player. Don't be afraid to give more freedom to your learners, because this is an essential inner thing from inside which makes us genuinely interested in solving problems. Also, all the humans actually want to be masters in certain things, and learners itself as well. So therefore, games offer this opportunity to perfect in some things. When it's a team play, even those learners who are not that much good in English, so they will be very good supporters and help from another, from another side, they could be leaders, etc. So to make the team going on, and they will be able to master the skill within, and they will get genuine satisfaction in the activity, and as a result, much better results. And we also, and as for the last point, in two different versions, actually, I read about two different things. So Dan Pink was talking about purpose, that we all love things which lead to something which is more important than ourselves. So, and also I think it is really much connected to this connectedness thing, that we are social beings, so, and we are very much dependent on the people around us. So that's why games, so as a competition, so we become in more contact with other human beings, and that actually again something with the need which triggers our internal intrinsic motivation to start working in full length. So actually, I'm finishing today's talk, and I will finish it with a quotation from this fantastic lady. I won't actually make you now type this. This is Mary Poppins. It is Mary Poppins. So, and I will use a quotation from a very old black and white film about Mary Poppins that was a musical. So this is a part of a song. So when I talk about games, game-based learning, or gamification, I always use this quotation. So, and it says, in every job that must be done, there is an element of fun. You find the fun and snap, the job's a game, and every task you undertake becomes a piece of cake. So, I finish with wishing you for your job to be a piece of cake when you use correct methods that work based on scientific research. So don't be afraid to try out new ideas, new things. They really work. So, and before I finish, I'd like to show you our contacts. So what I want to tell you, I want, so you see two sites here. You may visit us and to see, to read about our organizations. But as Sveta mentioned, we are now in the process of calling schools to join our GoCamp project. So you may read more about the project at gocamps.com.ua. We also invite you to Facebook to join Go Global UA webpage. And also I have a group on Facebook, which is called GoCamp Schools. Just find us, join us. I'll be happy to, so there you will find lots of things, ideas, not about GoCamp. You will see, you will be, so this is like a platform for communication between teachers, and they highly encourage that. So seems like that's it from me. If you have any questions, so you may ask them right now, because I was sad that we can finish 10 minutes later. It means we have 15 more minutes if you have questions for discussions. Okay, so I'll wait a little bit. If you, in case you have any questions, I'll just type them in. Okay. This week, yes, so only one seminar, so I will have, yes, only one webinar this week, so this one, and next week on Monday, same time at 5 o'clock if I'm not mistaken, next week on Monday, I'll be going about GoCamp. So if you are interested in the project and you want to learn more about GoCamp and about what we do, just join us in a week's time here. So there is another link for registration for that webinar. So just register and I'll be happy to answer your questions as for GoCamp. Good. So thanks a lot. I'll maybe here for one more minute in case someone is still typing a question. Thanks a lot for compliments. So the next webinar will be in the Ukrainian language, by the way. So if you want someone else from your school or your friends from nearest school, so to learn more about GoCamp, so you may ask them to join, because no English on next Monday, just Ukrainian. Yeah. Good. So I don't see any more questions. The conference Go Global Camp. So we'll have a training in April. I'll tell everything about the procedure for the next year on Monday. Yes. Now, lots of thanks. No questions. Thank you. So, hopefully see you in a week's time. Have a good evening. Bye. So I'll disconnect. Okay. Good.